Okay, so this is a revision map out of context for Macbeth, so an A03 focus. And there are 4 sections here where we look at King James, we look at witches and the supernatural, we also look at the Great Chain of Being, and also gender roles. And now we look at sort of gender roles and looking at, in particular, stereotypes. And if we look at Lady Macbeth as a character, when we look at Lady Macbeth, it's very obvious that she is seen as very forward-thinking, in other words, transgressive, and very much reverses the stereotype. So she deviates from the social expectations of her gender role as a woman. And so, seeing as how it was written in 1606, Shakespeare had been writing plays for a very long time at that point, by that time, and so a lot of students would assume that this would have shocked a Jacobean audience, that a woman in Shakespeare in a Shakespeare play would be transgressive or forward thinking, but this actually would have been expected. Shakespeare had done this countless times, so students should always focus on the fact that Lady Macbeth would not have shocked a Jacobean audience. It would be expected that her ambitious, intelligent, independent nature was something to be expected. Now, if we look at different examples, Juliet from Romeo and Juliet, fully sexualized teenager who marries against her father's wishes. That's another example. Like Lady Macbeth is very much independent and orchestrates the events that lead to the tragedy and the downfall. Another example is Hermia from Midsummer Night's Dream, that she disobeys her father for love, which very rebellious and forward thinking. If we look at Beatrice in Much Ado About Nothing, the entire play is really, to be honest, about how she's an intellectual match for any male character in the play. Now, if we go back to Lady Macbeth, like I said, it would be more shocking if she was submissive, subservient and inferior, but actually she reverses the stereotype because she's superior and dominating and always gets what she wants. So the second bullet point is really, really important, and this is something that examiners never see, that your teachers, I'm sure, will have taught you this particular sentence. Lady Macbeth draws on a theatrical lineage of women who challenge men. And like I said, we've just looked at a list of a few of Shakespeare's female characters who defy social norms. Lady Macbeth is also one of them. And it basically contrasted or juxtaposed with the main idea in the 16th and 17th century that women needed to be controlled because they could be devious, intelligent, manipulative. Dare I say, reinforcing James I's paranoia of women, intelligent women being a witch. And it's part of a husband or father's job to make their wives/daughters subservient. So it was about control, it was about dominance. Shakespeare basically flipped that and changed it. So he instead, and if you look at Macbeth is one of the main characters that does this. Macbeth himself reverses the stereotype because he is constantly anxious, unsure, lacks control. It's only at the beginning of the play where he's shown as this very stereotypical man of being brave, noble, Macbeth, a lion, in the obvious sense. But actually, when he's trying to outmatch Lady Macbeth in terms of his intellect, he fails miserably. And in fact, she dominates him and she orchestrates him, not the other way around. And it really shows how inferior he is in the presence of Lady Macbeth, because he goes from being a lion to suddenly the poor cat in the adage. Okay, so if we look at the Great Chain of Being, so this was like your traditional social hierarchy created by God. So Elizabethans believe that God set out an order for everything in the universe, and it was known as the Great Chain of Being. Like I said, creating a social order or a social hierarchy for everybody, and basically God chose where you belong. And so below God would be the king and queen, God put them there because they were only answerable to God. In brackets there put the divine right of kings. So it meant that disobeying the monarch was a sin. Like, for example, in Macbeth, when Macbeth goes against the monarch, goes against King Duncan and kills him. It's also led to the idea that if the wrong person was monarch, everything would go wrong for a country. For example, in Macbeth, when Macbeth becomes king, everything goes wrong. And even people start to mourn Scotland. They say, bleed, bleed, poor country. It's almost like nature is disturbed because Macbeth has disturbed or disrupted or gone against the Great Chain of Being. So these are different examples. So it includes everything from God at the top, angels at the top, to then humans, to animals, to plants, and to even rocks and minerals, which are at the bottom. And humans pretty much are in the middle of this. And basically, like I said, if you go against it, if you decide to change your station in life, that would be the ultimate sin, and considered a sin to God. So the last thing I've got here is going over context and going over background knowledge, social historical context. It's how do you make that relevant in an essay? And let's say, for example, you talk about Lady Macbeth. Okay, and this is just a generic, very short paragraph analysing Lady Macbeth. And it will say something like, in the extract, because in a Macbeth question, you'll get given a short extract from a key scene or a particular scene of the play. So let's just say, for example, in the extract, Lady Macbeth is presented as someone who is ambitious and willing to do anything to become queen. The fact that she commands the spirits to take my milk for gall suggests how she is willing to rid herself of her feminine qualities to succeed. It also suggests how Lady Macbeth is trying to fill the void in her life as she is childless, and this could further imply how the golden round will give her meaning in life. So that's just a very, very generic A01. Make a few inferences about a quote. What does it show, what does it suggest, and why? Now the bit that is contextual is the bit at the bottom in red, where it says, here we see Shakespeare has reversed the stereotype. Now, students might say that, and you're absolutely spot on. However, whilst context is included, it is limited. So we need something more. We need something extra. We need you to basically not just include context and hope for the best. We need you to make the context relevant to your answer in relation to the question that you're answering. So if it's a question about Lady Macbeth, the context needs to match the question, but also it needs to be relevant. So whilst Shakespeare did reverse the stereotype, at the moment that contextual link just looks like you've just stuck it in and hoped for the best. To show further understanding, a more thoughtful understanding, you need to expand on it and link it back into your question focus, your answer. So if you look at the next slide here, this is how you do it. So everything is exactly the same with the first AO part there. So the first bit that's in black, where it ends in golden round, will give a meaning in life. That's all the same. Now the context here is obviously a little bit more detailed. For example, it says here we see Shakespeare's reversed the stereotype. Okay, brilliant, but tell me why that's relevant. So Lady Macbeth juxtaposes with the traditional expectations of women during the Jacobean period and is transgressive or forward-thinking due to her ambitious, independent and intelligent nature. Shakespeare created a theatrical lineage of strong female characters who deviate from societal expectations. That there is a huge chunk of context, and it shows a deep understanding of, not only the context but how it relates to the question. So it's about embedding the context and making it relevant. And to make it even more relevant, link it back into your AO1. And the last part here in black, it says, and through Lady Macbeth, we can see how her eagerness for the crown conveys someone who is willing to defy her role as a subservient, inferior woman and become an orchestrator. So it's a very generic example, but effective in looking at how you can include context. You don't want to write a standalone context-based paragraph. It's not a history essay. We want you to basically embed the context to strengthen not only whichever AO you're embedding it with, but also the AO3, the context itself. And that's how you do it.